The following program, Norml Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting norml.org, Norml.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of Norml Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of Norml. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and recriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents Norml Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, Norml's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes. Welcome. It is Thursday, January 26, 2012, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome to the show. We're glad you could join us here for this Groovin' Thursday. We're going to have an excellent program for you today. Joining us in studio on camera 2 there, we've got Ganja John in the house. How you doing?
What's up, Russ? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I got to boost that a little bit. You look like a latent Boise State fan today. I love it. Got the blue and orange.
Yeah, it's just for Russ.
It's just for me. I appreciate that so much. Also joining us from our virtual studio in lovely Grass Story, Oregon is our senior news editor, Cannabis Carrie. How you doing, Carrie?
I'm doing great. Happy Thursday. Beautiful day here on the coast today.
Yeah. Is the snow washed away yet?
The snow washed away. The sun's out. It's gorgeous again. That's how it goes out here in Oregon.
Yeah. If you haven't visited Astoria, Oregon, folks, you got to get out and visit and give Cannabis Carrie a call. She'll take you to all the stuff, the Goonies house, the Record of Peter Ardale. It's all out there. Visit Cannabis Carrie. Hey, Carrie's our senior news editor. That means she's got the hemp headlines right after the first break. What's in the news today?
Well, today we're going to go to the Northeast, where there's a state there that wants to consider adding PTSD to a qualifying condition. You know, I hope that comes up more and more as the year goes on. And another story, Russ, another officer charged with corruption. Unbelievable. We've got a lot of that going on. Yes, the inherent system that's so corrupted. And also we're going to go out to Ohio, where not one, but 2 different medical marijuana measures are trying to make their way towards November. We're going to tell you all about those 2 coming up on today's Hemp Headlines.
All right. That's coming up right after this first break. And then at 20 after the hour, we've got our Groovin' Thursday Daily Toker Tune. And today we're dipping back into the 90s. Artist I found out of the Midwest called K Stone, and his song Puff the Magic Dragon should be a good one. Also on today's show, it is the 4th Thursday of the month. And on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays, Cops Say Legalize Drugs. We got a guest speaker from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, Michael Cahoe, a former FBI special agent in the violent crimes division of all things. So we'll talk to him on his experience fighting the drug war. And then at the end of the show, it's time for a radical rant. There is the strangest defense of marijuana prohibition in the Huffington Post Canada edition by a guy named Yoni Goldstein. I've never heard of him, but very, very odd points that he makes, and I'm going to take the time to debunk him today in the Radical Rant, so stick around for that. And then, of course, Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio, where you can get your part in on the conversation at 971-533-7111. Stick around. It's Norml Show Live. We're back.
You're listening to Norml Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hi, I'm Radical Russ. One of the best things about marijuana is the wonderful aroma. But when you travel a lot like I do, that aroma becomes a suspicious smell. That's why I endorse Stealth-Products.com, the leaders in smell-proof containers. From smell-proof vacuum bags to smell-proof backpacks and duffel bags, all the way to smell-proof digital safes, Stealth-Products.com has you covered. Stealth-Products.com brings you safe, secure, odorless layers of protection with activated carbon fiber. Backpacks and duffel bags are simple black so as not to attract attention with a logo or flashy design. Now, nothing is perfectly odor controlled from the detection of drug dogs, but with proper vigilance, containers from stealth-products.com will help you avoid nosy humans.
You're now listening to Illit Beats.
Stealth-products.com. Stealth-products.com.
Hey, this is John Papa. You're listening to The Norml Show Live.
Weedmaps.com. I'm Radical Russ from Norml. In my job as outreach coordinator, I travel every month, and when I'm on the road, I need a fast, accurate way to find the medical marijuana dispensaries in the area. So I turn to Weedmaps.com. Weedmaps.com has the best dispensary locator online or on your mobile device. Search by zip code or let Weedmaps find you, and in seconds you'll have the addresses, phone numbers, and customer service reviews for the medical marijuana dispensaries in the local area. Weedmaps.com also has a section devoted to helping you find a doctor who understands and recommends medical marijuana under your state's law. You can even check prices on the Medical Marijuana Stock Exchange. Coming soon, you'll even be able to find the listings of Norml attorneys and chapters, local head shops and grow shops, and the best weed-friendly businesses. Weedmaps.com has the information you need to be an informed cannabis consumer. Visit Weedmaps.com today, a proud sponsor of the Norml Network.
Inhaling deeply of the sacred smoke.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's Norml News with Cannabis Carrie.
There are two medical marijuana proposals that are on their way towards Ohio's November ballot this year. The Ohio Medical Cannabis Amendment of 2012 was approved on Wednesday by the Ohio Ballot Board. Now, the group behind that effort can begin gathering the 385,245 valid signatures that they need from registered voters to get their proposal on the ballot. The group has until July 6th to get all those signatures. Back in October, we told you about Ohio's 5-member ballot board that had approved a similar proposal, a constitutional amendment called the Ohio Alternative Treatment Amendment, that is also seeking to legalize marijuana for medical treatments for those with qualifying conditions. Now, the goal for both of these proposals is the same, to legalize the medical use of cannabis in the state. The difference between the two proposals is that the cannabis amendment leaves out the limits on how much medical marijuana someone could have, grow, and buy, leaving that decision to a medical marijuana commission that would be created by the proposal. In the Alternative Treatment Amendment, they have pages and pages of detail that would be added to the Ohio Constitution to clarify amounts and rules. In the Alternative Treatment Amendment, individuals would qualify and they could possess 3.5 ounces of marijuana. There would be a prohibition of medical marijuana sellers that they'd have to be at least 1,000 feet from schools, churches, recreational centers, or drug rehab facilities. Now, an Ohio lawyer and businessman from Salem, George Karff, who worked on the Alternative Treatment Amendment, says that he is uncomfortable leaving specifics to a yet-to-be-determined commission. He also thinks that in the end, only one of the proposals will probably make it to the November ballot and hopes that it is the alternative treatment one, but he's not sure. The Columbus-based Drug Free Action Alliance, of course, is speaking out on both proposals. Marcy Seidel, the executive director of the anti-drug group, says that they would never support any medication that must go through a ballot box. Those decisions should be left to the Food and Drug Administration. The Ohio Alternative, Treatment Amendment that was approved by the Ohio Ballot Board in October is supported by Norml.
You know, that's a strange thing every time I hear it. You know, we shouldn't have medicines that are approved at the ballot box. We should only let them go through the FDA. And, you know, originally when we were talking about the days of the snake oil salesman and so forth, and when we needed FDA approval to see what was safe and what was effective, that made a lot of sense. But these days, and especially when we're talking about a botanical that has 5,000 years of human use, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why not let the people decide what medicines they should be able to take? Why do the medicines have to be protected from our use? I mean, if the people were so stupid as to legalize something that was inherently harmful, they would learn from that and they would probably ban it again, wouldn't they? I mean, I think the people know best in this situation, and the doctors, the medical paradigm is not allowing us to access this medicine. You wouldn't be able to get a botanical cannabis through the FDA. You can't, verify each dose size. There's no consistency from bud to bud, from plant to plant, from strain to strain. It doesn't fit in those pharmaceutical type categories and boxes that would make it through FDA approval. How about we just go with the 5,000 years of safe use by humans and never one recorded death in the history of mankind?
A Georgia police officer from DeKalb County, who also happened to be the officer of the month in the state for December, was arrested on Wednesday and charged with theft from the people he had arrested. Officer Gaeth Abdul McGee had been on the DeKalb County Police Force for 4 years. The warrant for his arrest yesterday charged him with theft by taking possession of marijuana and violation of oath of office. He was taken into the DeKalb police headquarters in handcuffs and in front of news crews. When being led into the police station, a reporter yelled a question asking him if he stole, to which he answered, "I'm innocent. My girlfriend is setting me up," which, just on a side note, I think is a terrible idea this close to Valentine's Day. The officer has been placed on administrative leave, and police say that there are additional charges pending in the case. The police were tipped off about their fellow officer around 2 a.m. on Monday morning. They were called by a neighbor to investigate a domestic disturbance from the officer's home. The officer's live-in girlfriend, Shanti White, told police that her boyfriend had been stealing from defendants as she was being led away in handcuffs for simple assault. She told police that he would bring home things daily. Investigators said they did find a laptop, computer, a cell phone, and an iPod that belonged to some defendants, plus several bank cards and banking information. White also told police that her boyfriend often brought home marijuana that he had seized. Since there are still charges pending, bail has not been set yet, but a tricked-out police car that he was allowed to take home as part of his Officer of the Month commendation was impounded as evidence.
Oh, yeah, I got a feel for the poor guy, huh? Yeah. Oh, what a terrible story. Look, as far as I can just see this Georgia cop pulling people over. Son, you wanna hand me over that bag there? You hand me over that bag? Me and Shanti got a hot date tonight. Once again, the endemic corruption of the drug war takes down yet another officer sworn to protect and serve, another person we put the public trust into, an officer of the month, no less, and stealing not just marijuana, but goods, people's iPods and computers and such. This just gives, it's not that cop corruption doesn't exist without prohibition, but prohibition sure gives them a whole lot more opportunities.
And a state representative from Vermont is asking to amend the state's medical marijuana law to include post-traumatic stress disorder to the list of qualifying conditions. Representative Jim Mosland, a Democrat from Thetford, Vermont, introduced the bill at the request of a number of his constituents who are already using marijuana to alleviate stress symptoms they feel were caused by their military service. Representative Maisland said that he understands that these unnamed individuals have not been able to find relief by other means. He told the floor that these vets were using marijuana quietly, but they would rather do it legally. He said the vets who contacted him about the bill had served in Vietnam as well as the recent wars the U.S. has fought in the Middle East in the last decade. Vermont has had a medical marijuana law since 2004. Although the program has been in effect for the last 7 years, they currently have only 411 patients and only 68 caregivers who are enrolled in the program. The state is in the process of allowing 4 dispensaries in Vermont where patients could purchase medical marijuana open up, but currently patients or their caregivers are allowed to grow their own marijuana. Michael Kravitz is the executive director of the group Veterans for Medical Marijuana Use in Vermont and said he is happy that the use of marijuana to help veterans treat PTSD has been gaining acceptance across the country. He said that the bottom line is the issue is that we really don't have too many treatments for PTSD that are effective. 1 year ago, the Department of Veterans Affairs, a federal government agency, adopted a pro-cannabis policy allowing veterans to use medical marijuana in states where it's illegal, although not in any VA facilities. And VA healthcare providers are not allowed to qualify veterans to use medical marijuana. They have to go to an outside physician for a recommendation. In Vermont, the medical marijuana program is overseen by the Department of Public Safety's Criminal Justice Service. Their director, Francis Amand, says it is now up to the legislature to decide if PTSD is added. He says their department only looks to see if you meet the legal requirements. He says that from that perspective, it is a smoothly regulated process. Now, for his part, Representative Meslin says that he hasn't heard anything negative about his bill, which is now appointed for review in a committee. But he says that the reality is that there are just too many issues for the Vermont legislature to tackle, and he admits medical marijuana isn't one of them this year. His bill to include PTSD would not be restricted to veterans, although they might get the most benefit from its passage.
Well, you know, we've talked about PTSD on our Cannabis Science Wednesdays with Dr. Mitch Earlywine, where there's a ton of anecdotal evidence for its use, marijuana's use in helping treat that, but not a whole lot of studies yet. And of course, we keep getting stymied every time we try to put a study together. But clearly, I feel if those studies are finally done, we will see, of course, there is a huge benefit for PTSD sufferers from use of cannabis. We talk to veterans all the time that tell us that. Now, you can get medical cannabis recommendations for PTSD in New Mexico and in California, but none of the other states that have medical marijuana. I don't know if Washington State had tried, and we'll have to look that up. I don't remember if that was one of the ones they had put through there, but we need to make this change to help support our veterans. All right, thanks, Carrie, for the news. I have a couple of updates here on the news wire that I was taking a look at. You remember Sierra Blanca, Texas, right? We've talked about Sierra Blanca, Texas. They pulled over Willie Nelson there in Sierra Blanca. They pulled over Snoop Dogg recently. But now we've got a new celebrity who's been pulled over. Now, I didn't know this is the guy's name. His name's Armie Hammer. Armie Hammer, that's the guy's real name. You'll know him from The Social Network, the movie. He played the Winklevoss twins in The Social Network. He's also in a new movie, J. Edgar, with Leonardo DiCaprio. Well, he was busted in Sierra Blanca, Texas. This, according to the UK Mail Online, authorities say Hammer, age 25, was arrested in Sierra Blanca, Texas after a drug-sniffing dog discovered marijuana in his car. The actor spent a day in jail before paying a $1,000 bond. Now, get this. According to arrest records, he was found in possession of 0.02 ounces of marijuana. 0.02 ounces. Now, Ganja John, you know what we say when we're down to 0.02 ounces of marijuana?
It's time to re-up.
We are out of marijuana. That's right. That's the old...
I mean, that means I'm looking in the couch if there's that much.
We're down to the Ron White, we are out of marijuana line.
Yeah.
By the way, for those of you wanting the metric conversion, 0.02 ounces is half a gram, a little more than half a gram of marijuana. Maybe you could roll a joint with that, a pinner.
Been caught with less.
Yeah, exactly.
Caught with less.
So that's the Social Network guy. He's been busted, and the El Paso District Attorney will be looking at that. Also, he was found with 3 medical marijuana cookies and 1 brownie, and caught by a Border Patrol drug-sniffing dog. So that's our celebrity bust news. Armie Hammer, the latest victim of Sierra Blanca, Texas. And in other medical marijuana news, this news coming from the StandardExaminer.com, medical marijuana card holder was headed to Utah with 69 pounds of pot. This is from Boise, Idaho, my hometown. A traffic stop in southwestern Idaho resulted in an Oregon man being charged with felony drug trafficking after officers found nearly 69 pounds of marijuana in his car. The Idaho State Police says 39-year-old Justin Cody Brownrigg of Eugene, Oregon, was pulled over for a traffic violation on Interstate 84 in Canyon County, my home county. A trooper detected the odor of marijuana in the car, and Brownrigg said he had 8 to 10 grams of marijuana and was a medical marijuana card holder in Oregon. How many times do we have to tell you your card does not mean jack squat when you are not in the state where that card was issued, with a couple of exceptions, actually 4 medical marijuana exceptions: Arizona, Maine, Rhode Island, and Michigan. Montana dropped theirs. Yeah. There you go. There's 4 exceptions. Officers found a small amount of marijuana in a pipe, but a more intensive search turned up 3 large duffel bags with 68.8 pounds of marijuana worth an estimated $172,000 in the car. Brownrigg told the officers he was headed to Utah. How many times also must we tell you, STFU, stop talking in front of uniforms. There is nothing to be gained by telling them you're a medical card holder, nothing to be gained by telling them where you were going. Other than making our movement look bad, other than giving our opponents yet another excuse to try to shut down medical cannabis distribution, to try to make it harder for patients who are following the law by getting caught interstate trafficking multiple pound deals out of Oregon headed to Utah. This has got to stop, and the only way it's going to stop is when people in Utah can get the marijuana they want to smoke, when people in Oregon who grow it can sell it on the market. This is not going away. You cannot repeal the laws of supply and demand. Let's finally legalize this market before these type of stories ruin what little medical progress we've made.
Well, I think it's time to take a medical break and realize that 69 pounds means shit when you have a medical card.
Yeah, 69's over any limit.
Any
anywhere.
limit, anywhere.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Norml Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa. Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
So you're saying she does not have an alibi?
Well, no.
Okay, so we've established she ain't got no alibi. She ugly. She ugly. U-G-L-Y. She ain't got no alibi. She ugly.
Screw off.
M. She's made you ugly. O. She's fat and pugly. Oh, my God, no, the cow says moo.
Legalize it. Don't criticize.
This is Peter Tosh for Norml, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Did you know that more than 400,000 Americans were arrested last year for the possession of marijuana? People are being sentenced to up to 40 years for even standing beside a joint. Well, I think it is definitely time for you to help doing something towards this. To find out what you can do, just write Norml, N-O-R-M-L.
1600 K Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. 2006. That's 1600 K Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20006.
Help Norml to help protect your rights.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Groovin' Thursday. Our salute to all the dopest beats and killer rhymes that we find in the best of rap, hip-hop, soul, R&B, and funk. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Norml Show Live, send it to us at stash@norml.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tune.
All right, I'm going to take another dip into the IOTA promo net for today's song, but for the future, probably going to turn this over to Ganja John. Let you pull up some tunes when you do. You're pretty in-depth on this hip-hop stuff, a lot more than me. So
yeah, and there's a lot of it you can play for free. There's so many mixtapes out there. There's a lot of really good music.
No doubt. I mean, we talked about this before, how, we live in a time now where just used to be back in the day as 2 turntables and a microphone, and now it's an iPod and iPod and a laptop. You know? And you can make wonderful music, and there's so much of it out there. So we'll have Ganja John as our music editor coming up soon on future Groovin' Thursdays. But for today, I get to pull one out of the vaults here, and the description that was on this, I love the description. He says he's the Midwest Ice Cube of the 90s. The guy's name is K Stone. It says he blew up the streets of Detroit in the mid-90s, and his music is still relevant today. The song is called Puff the Magic Dragon. This is K Stone, straight out of Detroit, on your Groovin' Thursday.
Roll up a fat one and pass it around. I love you, Mary Jane. People in the street see me bopping my head while I'm checking out the rapper and the rhyme that he said. People in the street see me bopping my head while I'm checking out the rapper and the rhyme that he said.
Yo, light that smoke up, you know I'm in the smoke mode. I need a lighter with a blunt and a blindfold. Mary Jane screwing my brain when I take a hit. Imagine this shit like a rap battle in the pit. And I'm the bull with the full clash of the Titans. Master Joe made us last opponent quit writing. I'm not bragging, just serious cocking a bag and relax my head. Homies bow, puffing a magic dragon, pants sagging. K-Stone nigga hit the joint,
but I don't smoke that shit.
Gee, that's my point. Do I look like a fucking stranger named Jack?
It's like that.
You act like I'm trying to give you some crack. I just got a fresh bag straight from the hood. I wish you would, cause this shit is good. Naturally grown like a tree in Colombia. It's different kinds of bullets, tote that good ganja. Take me over to the other side of Cloud 9 so I can pop open the 40 and bust a couple of rhymes. Skizzo, hit you like boom pow. Inhale, exhale, choke the aftermath will make you laugh. Face looking real cheesy. Laid back like a Mac, smoothed out, feeling easy. Eyes bloodshot red, take you straight to the head. Master Joe, House of Stone, label dead.
Roll up a fat one and pass it around. Right around when I'm done, get blunted.
Roll up a fat one and pass it around.
I love you, Mary Jane. People in the street see me bobbing my head while I'm checking out the rapper and the rhyme that he said. People in the street see me bobbing my head while I'm checking out the rapper and the rhyme that he said. Contact, yo fuck it, I hit the joint, now I got it off in me, feeling kinda friendly.
But that ain't enough, break out the Philly blunt, cut it up, roll it up, now let's talk 'em up.
Damn, Jay, how we going in, black?
Ain't no slack, you know we got to roll it fat, so just puff, nigga, puff, nigga, puff.
Now I got that endo smoke on my breath.
Wow.
Now I graduated and the only thing I regret was how long I waited, and now I wanna do it again.
I told you, nigga, that fat ass dank pulled the trigger, but Mary ain't scary, all that bad talk is a gimmick to keep you from puffing the magic dragon hallucinogenic. I can't complain, Miss Jane, don't discriminate, I know cause this hoe will keep you floating while you're talking to the break of day. Keep smoking till you pass out.
I feel like Lionel Richie from the Commodores when it shot. So high, music to drive by.
Congratulations, my nigga, you just graduated. Crack open the 40 and guns it down so we can celebrate it. Don't knock it until you try. A lot of people say they can't. She's the strongest on, we're puffing that marijuana.
Can I smoke with you?
Yes, you may. Take a pull, take a puff, puffing up so all your lungs are full. Puff the magic's in effect. And who's next on the set?
Now, Kevin that noise next up on the grip. Step to the mic and it's time to rip. Flip the script and make waves in the water. Been flipping the rhyme so many times that I think I ought to jump back and kiss myself like James or blow my own brains. I'm like my name was Kurt Cobain, insane in the membrane. And I got the feel, smoking more blunt than Cypress Hill, for real. Roll up a fat one and pass it around.
Yeah, right around when I'm done, get blunted.
Roll up a fat one and pass it around. I love you, Mary Jane. People in the street see me bopping my head while I'm checking out the rapper and the rhyme that he said. People in the street see me bopping my head while I'm checking out the rapper and the rhyme that he said.
The magic drag,
Wait a minute. I'm fucked up, dog. Damn.
What's up, niggas? What's up with you?
Hocus pocus, nigga. Could it be I got you hooked on this Mary Jane, taking total control of your brain, body, and soul? In about 2 seconds, I got you stretched out on the floor, my fist in the air, my 9 on your chest. The queen of this whole gathering. When Mary Jane steps foot in the party, there will be no more chattering. I'm here, nigga, lay all your problems on the table. No need for radio, no time for Cox cable. Lay your head on my shoulder and let me ease your pain. 1 puff, damn, 2 puff, goddamn, Mary Jane's drain. Now let
Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after a word from these 420 friendly sponsors. Wait a minute. This is Internet radio. There are no dials here.
Walked through the big building over, and I walked outside, and I'm walking over by the lake, and I just see everybody casually smoking weed like it's all right. Like it's supposed to be like that.
Because it is all right.
Like you ain't got to worry about no police coming and asking you what you smoking or what are you doing here, or let me see your driver's license. See, that's how they do it in Amsterdam. Everybody just out there chilling. Ain't nobody stressing. You go buy your weed at the shop. You go kick it, smoke your weed, walk the street, do whatever you want to, and you don't even
catch Norml News with Cannabis Carey every weekday on Norml Show Live at 7 p.m. Eastern, here on the Norml Network.
What makes something funny? How does humor impact health and psychological well-being? How can you incorporate humor into everyday life? A concise, reader-friendly introduction to an important but often underappreciated topic in modern psychology, Humor 101 explains the role of comedy, jokes, and wit in the sciences and discusses why they are so important to understand. Psychology professor Dr. Mitch Earlywine draws from his personal experiences in stand-up comedy to focus on how humor can regulate emotion, reduce anxiety, and diffuse tense situations, expose pretensions, build personal relationships, and much more. He irreverently debunks the pseudoscience on the topic of humor and leaves readers not only funnier, but better informed. It's part of the Psych 101 series from Springer Publishing, Humor 101 by Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Ph.D.
One of the most disturbing elements of the war on marijuana is how it's made police the enemy of otherwise law-abiding cannabis consumers. Fortunately, one group of police officers knows firsthand the futility of the drug war and reaches out to the community and to current law enforcement to end our war on drugs through legalization. It's time now to speak to one such officer in our continuing look at law enforcement against prohibition.
I always look forward to these interviews because I feel LEAP is doing such a great job in promoting the responsible decision here to end prohibition. And we're joined today by another great guest, Michael Cahoe, who's a retired special agent for the FBI out of Richfield, Ohio, but he served the FBI for 27 years, investigating organized crime, public corruption in Atlanta, Cleveland, Gary, Indiana, and New Orleans, eventually promoted to the FBI's Director of Violent Crimes and Major Offenders section in Jacksonville, Florida. Michael, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be on tonight.
You know, when I looked at your bio here at leap.cc, and by the way, folks, if you're looking for a LEAP speaker to come out to your area and discuss this, just check out leap.cc, and you can find great folks like Michael there. They got someone in almost every state, so check it out. But I look up on your bio here, and there's a quote that just came right out to me that says, "The heightened risk to law enforcement in a society that so severely outlaws drugs is huge." And that's one aspect maybe people that are fighting against prohibition or think that the drug war is silly, maybe they don't look at that side of it, that this is risky for cops as well. This is bad for law enforcement. We told a story today of a cop, another corruption story out of Georgia where he was taking marijuana from the locker and selling it and so forth. Tell us in your experience how you see this heightened risk to law enforcement because of the illegality of drugs.
Well, I mean, first, it's money is no object to these drug dealers. They have all the money they ever want, and they use the money to finance whatever they want, including weapons. They can go out and buy some of the most sophisticated automatic weapons out there. And, the law enforcement's outgunned. We're walking around, or not we anymore, me, but the guys who are working are carrying handguns, and these guys are carrying automatic shoulder weapons with ammunition, which is armor-piercing bullets, and it's just a mismatch. And they do not hesitate at all to use these weapons. I mean, look what's happening down in Mexico. The murder rate down there, people are getting killed left and right. And it's you just can't compete with it in a law enforcement setting.
Yeah, your history here, working in the FBI's violent crimes and major offenders section, how much of the violent crimes in your workload could be attributed to the drug trade, the illegality of drugs?
It's really tough to say, to put a quantitative number on that. But it's got to be awful high. For instance, you can almost track some of the violent profit-making crimes like bank robberies. Some of the bank robbers got in to the violence associated with the drug trafficking, and that was much more profitable for them. And so now we have a lot of the people who used to do the stick-ups and the armed robberies and things like that kind of getting into the muscle behind some of the drug operations.
We're speaking with Michael Cahoe from Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, a 27-year special agent with the FBI, now retired and speaking for LEAP. We also, in this drug war, we're starting to hear from some of the opponents that, yes, the war on drug has failed, but we can't legalize. We just need to find a different way to fight the war through providing more treatment and more rehabilitation. What are your thoughts on that position?
Actually, it gets down, I think, to an area of semantics when you talk about legalizing. I'm not saying, and really LEAP isn't saying, that drugs and all the drugs, all the illegal drugs out there are safe for everybody. We all know that they're not. And we're not advocating to say, hey, from now on, everything is legal and the doors are wide open. What we're saying is let's regulate some of this stuff. Let's see if we can put some regulations in place where we can cut down on these cartels and the hoodlums and thugs who are running these operations. We've seen a decrease in tobacco usage in this country. And that's happened because of the way we regulate tobacco. The same with alcohol. We've seen how alcohol is regulated. It's easier for kids nowadays to get a marijuana cigarette than it is to get a six-pack of beer somewhere. Somebody ought to be taking a look at this and saying, let's regulate some of these drugs, and maybe that's we can try. We've certainly tried making them illegal now for decades, and not only has it not worked, but it has had the opposite effect on the cost of drugs.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And that cost of drugs, that prohibition involved with the illegal drug trade leads me to my next question, which is in dealing with violent crimes and major offenders and, the worst of the worst criminals, kidnappers and murderers and arsonists and so forth, how much of their criminal activity is financed through a drug trade? I mean, how much of the drug trade gives them the budget they need to do the other terrible things they want to do?
Well, of course, that's one of the things they're doing is committing violent acts to get funds to support their drug habits. And that just makes the violent crime rate skyrocket.
Does it work in reverse, though? Do we have a situation where violent criminals are selling drugs to fund their violent crime habit?
Well, sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have all this. We have, they're selling drugs so they can get money, so they can buy weapons, and they're going to use their weapons to support their violent criminal activities. I mean, look at the gangs. The gangs are using the money they get from drugs to buy these sophisticated weapons, Uzis and other automatic weapons that cops on the beat they don't carry them. They can't compete with these things. So yeah, your premise is absolutely right. We're using that money, or they're using that money to fund their criminal activities, their violent criminal activities.
Yeah, Michael Cahoe with LEAP here, retired FBI special agent. As we move forward in this and we end prohibition, one of the sticking points for people, and we see it in polls where we get huge majorities that say the drug war is a failure. It's absolutely a failure. But then when we ask them, all right, let's legalize drugs, even with marijuana being as acceptable as it is, it's only now topping 50%. And for other drugs, it gets down to 10% and as low as, 3% when we talk about things like heroin. How do we convince people that are scared of, well, okay, the drug war has failed, but if we legalize heroin, terrible things will happen. How do we get around that? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, and I think it's consistent with the message from LEAP, is that the word legalize conveys an idea which probably isn't 100% accurate. It is regulate that I would rather use. Right now, of course, there is no regulation. Nobody is allowed to use any of these illegal drugs. We ought to be able to regulate this somehow. We ought to be able to get it into a responsible market where we can dispense these drugs reasonably and responsibly to people who need them, and get rid of the element now that's controlling them. I guess to get back to answer your question, legalize, I would rather use the word regulate rather than just legalize. Legalize conveys this idea of every street corner you can have guys selling drugs again, and nobody's doing anything about it. That's not the concept that
right.
I envision.
Now, that's kind of what we have now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is what we have now, with absolutely no regulation at all. I mean, anything we sell today is tested to see if it's harmful. I know now in California, I guess they're testing some of the marijuana to make sure it's not contaminated with herbicides or pesticides or whatever, which of course isn't done with the drugs we have today, and it's killing people.
Absolutely. When that word legalize is brought up, I often like to say that legalize is a broad term. I mean, aspirin's legal and morphine's legal. On what edge of the spectrum do you want to put heroin? Well, probably closer to the morphine, I'd think. And marijuana may be closer to the aspirin, but there's a broad spectrum, and I like that you emphasize regulation. I think that's a good idea.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, and in that broad spectrum that you point out, you could have a broad spectrum of regulation. I mean, you could regulate some of these drugs, the heroin and things like that. You could regulate those more firmly than some of the other drugs. But it only makes sense.
As far as moving forward on the regulations, do you see a need for this to be, from a law enforcement perspective, do you see a need for this to be dictated at a federal level for uniformity throughout the states? Or should the states set their own regulations, and maybe one would treat heroin more strictly than another, and to see which state might have the best ideas?
Well, I really like the idea of having the states make their own decisions here on these things, and I think that's what we're kind of getting towards right now with some of the legalization in some of the states. The issue comes in is the federal government still has the authority to come in under the supremacy clause and saying, well, no, it doesn't matter if you say that it's legal in this state. We, the federal government, say it's not legal. So, I think there's going to have to be something done to offset that kind of supremacy supremacy clause there when it comes to.
Well, now we're talking about having to do something about the entire Federal Controlled Substances Act and the FDA and their jurisdiction. It almost seems sometimes when you think about ending prohibition, a monumental task. Do you see it that way?
You know, I don't think it's necessarily that way, but I think we have created this monster. You know, it's not just the drugs now that have been made illegal, but it's, you know, they've gone into not only the amount of drugs, and then now they've gone into what kinds of drugs. And I guess it's an old story about the crack cocaine, where crack cocaine carries a much higher penalty than powdered cocaine. And, you know, of course, the racial implications of that are unmistakable. I mean, they're here are laws that are absolutely directed at race and have serious implications that have to be taken into consideration too. And then you talk all about the penal system and all the people that are in jail because of the crack for longer than powdered cocaine. I mean, it really has a lot of other implications here, just other than just changing the law.
There's the law. There's the business interests in drug rehab, drug testing, prisons. There's so much intertwined with this. It's going to be a lot of work to get it untangled, and we're really glad that you're on our side helping us do that.
Oh man, yeah, there is a lot of, and the social implications, and in addition to the justice implications. If you look at what we've done here, how we've impacted so many families. When I say we, I mean the system here impacted so many families with this drug laws. It's going to take a monumental effort, but it certainly is going to be cheaper than this war on drugs we've had. That's not only been a failure, but I mean, if you look at it historically, the cost of a lot of these drugs is less now than it was 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Except marijuana, the safest one.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Except marijuana. Yeah, the other ones are getting cheaper. So you know what? Maybe we should declare a war on gasoline. And we will outlaw gasoline and say that from now on nobody can sell or possess gasoline. I mean, with this, boy, it'd be great. The cost of a gallon of gas would plummet.
We could only hope.
I mean, it should work that way. It's worked that way with drugs.
Yeah, it sure has. Michael Kehoe is a retired FBI special agent with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. I want to thank you for joining us here on Norml Show Live, and we'll have you back again. It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you. It was my pleasure, and I appreciate it.
All right. When we come back, time for a radical rant on the strangest defense of prohibition I've ever heard. See you in a minute.
You're listening to Norml Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Aloha, this is Zion Thompson from The Green, and you're listening to Norml Show Live.
It's tough talking to kids about marijuana, especially if you might be a parent who dabbled a time or two in your youth. So to help you out, get your copy of Dr. Mitch Earlywine's latest book, A Parent's Guide to Marijuana. Dr. Earlywine is an associate professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany and an expert on the studies concerning marijuana, its effect on health and society, and the methodology behind the statistics. He is a frequent guest here on our daily audio stash. Dr. Earlywine lays it all out without the propaganda and scare tactics that parents know won't work with teenagers. He presents a rational understanding of cannabis, what it is and what it isn't, and why kids shouldn't be using marijuana. You can order today through Amazon.com or check our links at our blog, stash.norml.org.
Yeah, I watch them TV all the time. They have the Rock Against Drug commercials, that whole campaign. These guys have, slid into fucking school buses and killed 20 children. Yeah. Rather than the facial license, they made a public service announcement. Yeah, no shit. Yeah. I love these guys that is hello, listen, don't get caught with drugs or you'll have to do a commercial just like this one. I think I found the message. The message is don't get caught. Rock against drugs. What a fucking name. Somebody was high when they came up with this title. Yeah. It's like Christians against Christ. Rock created drugs. What are they talking about? They go together, folks.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
Sometimes when it gets time to prepare the show and I'm looking for a radical rant, I have one of these days where it's like, gosh, what am I going to talk about today? Nothing really comes to mind. And so I get on the Google, on the internets, and I look around in the news and I find something that just piques my interest. And today, this is a good one. This is off of HuffingtonPost.ca. So this is a Canadian version, Canadian writer. And his name is Yoni Goldstein. I hope I'm pronouncing everything correct. Yoni Goldstein. And the title of the post is, Why Not Legalize Marijuana? Here's Why. Well, I thought, okay, let's see what this guy has to say about why we shouldn't legalize marijuana. So let me give you just the beginning here. He says, it strikes me that in all the recent discussion over legalizing marijuana, no one has actually written about the pros and cons of actually smoking the stuff. I mean, what it feels like, what it does to you. And he points out that, these news outlets are probably serious news people and they can't, come off sounding like stoners, so they don't tell you. So, and this is Yoni Goldstein writing, so at the risk of being labeled a pothead, here goes. Smoking marijuana offers any or all of the following positive effects. It will make you more relaxed, more thoughtful, though not necessarily insightful, and more creative. It will make all the good things in life a little bit better, and the bad things a little less bad. If you suffer from disease or chronic pain, it will ease your distress. If you are sociable, it will make you more so. If you're a loner, it will increase the pleasure of silence. If you have trouble falling asleep, pot can help with that too. Sounds pretty good, right? All right, so far I'm with him. I'm following that just fine. And yet, I'm 100% against legalizing marijuana. This doesn't mean I think people shouldn't use the stuff. That's up to you. Just that making pot legal would open us up to a host of negative side effects beyond the occasional crippling paranoia and general laziness. Now, before I dig into this, I'd like to reiterate the fact that anyone who is saying they're against legalizing marijuana is saying they are for 850,000 Americans or more being arrested every year, possibly losing their jobs, possibly losing their kids, their homes, their careers, possibly going to jail, losing their assets, college scholarships, and the like. So that's what you're in favor of here when you're arguing against marijuana legalization. So here's his first point. He says, pot is fairly accessible, fairly easily accessible. I have never heard an adult say, I'd love to try some of that marijuana everyone's talking about, but I can't seem to get my hands on any of it. Oh, really, Yoni? Check into our chat room. There's a few people in our chat room who would beg to differ with you as far as the easy access to marijuana. But he continues, if you think none of your friends smoke it or at least don't know where to get some, you're too naive. Further, pot smokers are a fairly easygoing bunch. Ask them for a piece of the action and they'll be happy to help out. Right, because they're so easy to find. You just 3 paragraphs ago were talking about how nobody discusses what the positive effects of cannabis are in the media because they're afraid of being labeled a pothead, and yet you're saying it's going to be easy to find them and get into a piece of the action. All right. So he continues, Yoni Goldstein here in HuffingtonPost.ca. So if it's already out there and everyone's doing it, why not legalize marijuana? Well, the most important reason is kids. Yes, he went to it, folks. The what about the children argument. Yeah, here he goes. Children are the least likely of us to have access to pot or pot dealers. Yeah. I'm not talking about the stoner smoking up in the bathroom who will wake up one day in 10 years and realize how stupid they were, but the more timid teenagers too afraid of getting in trouble or worse, being rejected to ask their hooked up classmates for a joint. Legalizing pot would give that bunch an easy in, the same way they ask adults to buy them booze or cigarettes, they could ask for marijuana. Pass Monsieur's Cheech and Chong a 10 spot, and they'll be happy to pick up a little extra from the dispensary. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. In fact, in every study that we've done on this, and we've looked at whether or not, what kids could get access to, they find it much easier to get access to marijuana than tobacco or alcohol. Seriously, ask any teenager, go get me a bottle of vodka, a carton of smokes, and a bag of weed, and they'll come back with the bag of weed first. On second thought, don't ask them to do that. That would be irresponsible. But you get my point, okay? It's a lot easier for kids to get a hold of marijuana right now because, one, their friends are able to deal it. You don't meet a whole lot of teenage Cuervo dealers. And two, nobody's checking IDs. When they try to go get that alcohol, they have to ask an adult to try and get it for them because they can't get it for themselves because someone's going to check their ID. Now, to continue this, he goes... This again, Yoni Goldstein and HuffingtonPost.ca. Staying with the young folks, let's consider the debate over whether marijuana is a gateway drug. It isn't in the sense that pot is addictive, but it is in the context of legalized marijuana. If pot becomes legal, drug dealers won't sell it anymore, obviously, which means they'll be peddling harder stuff or pot laced with harder stuff like cocaine. So when kids go looking for something illegal to do, as they are wont to do, they'll no longer have the relatively mild pot as a rebellion option. Did you follow the logic train on this one? We have to keep pot illegal so dealers have something safer to sell to kids. That's the logic train on that one, folks. When the kids rebel, we want to make sure they have something easy like pot to rebel with rather than cocaine or meth. Wow. I don't even know how to begin poking holes in that one, but let's start. First of all, you have to have an audience for these things, right? And the more honest we are with kids about drugs and what drugs can do, the less likely they are going to want to get into that market. The reason partially now that kids are getting their hands on cocaine or heroin or meth is because they're introduced to the illegal seller of those items through getting the illegal marijuana. There's a large possibility here that with legalized marijuana, we remove that incentive from those kids. Now, he goes on to another point here. Legalizing marijuana will turn us into a stoned society. Want an example of what that looks like? Consider Amsterdam's red light district, where pot smoking is famously legal. It's not, it's tolerated, but whatever. If you've been, you know that area sullies an otherwise beautiful historic city. Forget the soulless stares of prostitutes that follow you for a moment. The staggering stoners, cliched Bob Marley street art, and seedy drug dealers standing on every corner offering a cornucopia of hard drugs are depressing enough. Picture that, but in Toronto. Actually, I've known lots of people who have gone to Amsterdam, and everything I hear back from them is nothing but wonderful reports of how beautiful the city is. And then his final point, he believes for the welfare of society, it's important that some things are technically against the law, but practically overlooked. Some small acts allow the general population to feel free and rebellious, but at the same time remain a little mindful of the law. It's like a rolling stop at a stop sign. Chances are it's a safe move and you won't get caught, but you might get caught, so you come a little closer to actually stopping. He says the illegality of pot and the threat of being caught and punished is enough to keep us on our toes. And that would be a valid analogy, I suppose, if you couldn't lose your job, your home, your kids, your freedom, and your stuff for a rolling stop. Yoni Goldstein, he's on Twitter, YONI Goldstein. Let him know what you think. YONI Goldstein on Twitter.com and at HuffingtonPost.ca. That's all the time I got for now. For Ganja John and Cannabis Carry, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Norml Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it on one more time. Take a seat.
You got